When I hear the term night music, it already immediately conjures a feeling that I get from playing this music, a feeling that I immediately relate to when I have been a listener, when I'm an audience member hearing Bartók's music. For me, it conveys a picture and an image of Bartók's music and what makes it special.
I think one of the most amazing things about it is, as you say, it's like a painting. For me, whether you're a connoisseur or a musicologist, a Bartók specialist, or someone who has never heard classical music or the string quartet, this music immediately sounds like the night.
Even though Bartók didn't come up with that label for his music himself, for us as performers, once you have that general image in mind, so many things suddenly jump out at you as being like, oh, that's definitely a forest, or that's a dark night sky, or that's a completely different image of a fire, or this could be a storm amid the darkness, or something like that. Bartók's night music, I think, really stems from his love of nature, and he spent a lot of his life travelling around Hungary and further afield, collecting sounds from villages and really remote places around the country. So I think this night music has so much to do with those sounds that he was hearing while he was travelling.
Bartók's family actually say that they think it perhaps was influenced by the long summer nights that he spent at his sister's estate on the Hungarian plains. And I think that's a really nice image. We think
Yeah.
about him sitting out on an early summer's evening and listening to the crickets, the insects, the sounds of the night, and perhaps closing his eyes and conjuring up how to create those sounds and instruments. So Bartók almost never specifies literally what he's writing about. He doesn't write programmatic titles. But some of his musical ideas are so descriptive that they're undeniably insects or birds. For instance, when he's writing high tweeting noises on the violin. And I think as performers, we have to get out of the box so much. We have to get out of our traditional thinking about how to make a beautiful sound and instead really think about how we can create sounds that are not human. That's maybe something a bit creepy, something that we can't quite see, or something that's scrabbling in the darkness.
Bartók asks us so often to use tremolo, which is when we move the bow really, really, really quickly to create an unmeasured sound, so not a specific rhythm, but just as fast as we can to create a sense of energy and uncertainty, I think, in many instances.
When he has a figure that's like really fast and quiet and just kind of goes up and down in semitones. And for me that just sounds so much like a breeze in the night or like a sudden chill in the air.
Yeah, so as well as these literal sounds of the night, there is this idea of like an atmosphere of night created with various effects.
Yeah, one of my favourite moments is that bit where we play like way over the fingerboard where you would never normally think of playing, and it creates this
reedy sort of...
it's such a strange, ethereal sound.
Or sometimes like a panpipe or a flute or something.
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah, like that moment at the end of the Adagio. You guys are playing a really beautiful chord and I play over the top just a very fast sul tasto, so over the fingerboard, note that sounds really ethereal.
In this quartet, the most obvious night music movements are the second and the fourth movement, the slow, still, creepy moments. But then sitting in the middle of those is this third movement, scherzo, which it's a different scene, but it's still happening at night.
There's whole sections that really, you can so imagine people dancing around a fire perhaps. And he does that by creating a kind of a groove with particular time signatures that just really make you want to tap your toes.
The theme, the groove that starts at the beginning, is a sort of lopsided 4-beat Bulgarian rhythm.
We have to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 at a very, very fast pace with constant quavers, offbeat rhythms. You feel like when you're playing that you could fall off at any minute. I don't think that's how he wanted it to sound. I think he wants it just to completely sound like a groove, a natural and a folk dance. The middle bit of the scherzo is one of my favourite bits in the whole quartet. I set it up with such a weird motif that's repeated every single bar. Very chromatic, very, very quiet. For me, it's insects in the background. And then Stephen here becomes the human voice.
So this sort of really beautiful folk melody just appears out of nowhere. And it carries on, and then what I love is as the music continues, it becomes more and more insistent. So what starts as this singing folk tune kind of quickly shifts into this kind of furious shout almost, and then all of these layers of the sort of scurrying figures layer on top of each other becomes this kind of indecipherable cacophony.
And so the whole effect is that actually the nature sounds, the background is taking over the foreground.
And then fades, and boom, we're in the scherzo again.
Bartók's really a master of creating a still atmosphere and drawing the audience in with this amazingly sparse texture that's got these tiny fragments.
Yeah, and you can't quite work out where it's coming from or what it is, but you know it's there.
Definitely a pizzicato glissando, so when we slide with the left hand while we're plucking, so you hear the pitch moving in real time just with the resonance of the plucked string, which is so fantastic. Beginning of the Andante when Steph gets to do these sliding notes.
Yeah, for instance, that ricochet moment that we get in the Andante where we all have to bounce our bow. On one bow, we've got to bounce it and measure it so that we get 7 notes. The effect of all 4 of us doing it for the listener, I think, should be something quite innocent. But for us, I mean, we all know that measuring your bow to get 7 equal bounces, if you imagine skimming a stone across the water and trying to really get 7 equal bounces, for instance, that's the difficulty that we're talking about.
That's one of those ones that sounds like something kind of more otherworldly.
Bartók often emulates the sound of the human voice, and very often the cello is his chosen instrument for that. But we all get our chance sometimes to play these vocal melodies that are incredibly beautiful, often really soulful and lonely sounding.
So I think it's really interesting how those lonely melodies are part of their natural environment. So it's almost like it could be a shepherd's call or a song that was heard distantly.
He takes human voices and puts them into a landscape of nature. So there are often background voices that are constants, depicting the sounds of the wind or of the rain, of insects constantly buzzing in the background. And as the movement moves on, it's as if the nature overwhelms the human voice. It gets more and more worked up, and we hear eventually the sounds of the wind become the sounds of a storm and force the human voice into a bit of a frenzy. So Will and I have become the human voice. We're playing either against each other or sometimes in octaves, that bit.
Just desperate to be heard.
Yeah, desperate to be heard, exactly. And for me, it's the image is a whirling storm.
It's also amazing how within the umbrella of night music we both get the kind of cool, reserved, lonely character, but also the kind of ecstatic, overwhelming, all-encompassing, saturated sound. So it really can, the idea of night music is not just a kind of one of stillness and cold, but can be a whole range of emotions.
Yeah, he's very good at zooming in to the smallest things and then zooming out to the bigger picture of the whole scene, whether that be like a stillness or, as you say at this moment, a desperation, a storm or something.
At the end of the Andante particularly, where the viola is giving you echoes of this maelstrom, so I'm playing these fast notes that appear previously, but in this kind of calling way with the cello doing this bum-ba-dum, and the violins doing the chorale. And I think that's an excellent example of all of these ideas and themes overlapping, of the sort of human call, the voice, the song, this lonely, isolated individual kind of in the woods making this plaintive melody. Bartók combines all of these ideas and creates such a specific atmosphere of the night.